So, good day everyone, especially to our professor. I am Alainie Aminolah and I'm going to report some of the major topics in the globalization, the essentials, which is the global political structures and processes. So, the first one is the changes in global nation-state relations. Next is the United Nations in its parts, like the other organizations under the United Nations. And last but not least is the global governance. So some of us or all of us are aware what happened in the World War II, right? So the beginning and the kickstarts of the World War II was because of the invasion of the Poland in 1939. So between 1939 to 1945, every major nation in the world took part in the World War II. So millions of people died in the most catastrophic war recorded in the history. So here are some examples of the peoples that died during the World War II. So the allies of the World War II which took part in the war was mainly the United States, the Great Britain, and France and Russia. In its own Axis power, which is the Germany, the Japan, and the Italy. So let's move to the next changes in the global nation-state relations. So the second one is the Cold War. So during the Cold War, the Soviet Union blocked the countries and those countries that allied with the West. And it was an open but restrained competitions that emerged between the United States and the Soviet Union, as well as their respective allies. These pictures in my back shows the pictures of the happenings during the Cold War. So as you can see, there was a little use of firearms throughout the Cold War because since it was fought because on political, economic, and media fronts. So the next one is the fall of the mighty Soviet Union, or also known as the demise of the Soviet Union. So the US hegemony was expected to last well in the future, but it failed to get past the end of the country. So the substantial part of the Soviet Union's demise can be attributed to numerous dramatic reforms that the Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev carried out during his 6 years in the office. So Mikhail Gorbachev is one of the most powerful and energetic Soviet leaders as he changed the Soviet system by fundamental reforms, and he had a better relations with the West Europe and United States. So let me give you some trivia about Mikhail Gorbachev. So in 1990, Mikhail Gorbachev won the Nobel Peace Prize for helping end the Cold War. So he is the main reason and biggest reason why the Cold War ends. And the Time magazine named him the Man of the Year and the Man of the Decade. So last but not the least on the changes of the global nation-state relations is the 21st century's new Big Three. The emergence in the 21st century of a new Big Three, mainly the European Union, the United States, and the China as a new center of powers. So the China, the European Union, and the United States is the 21st century's new Big Three. So the China is advancing rapidly while the United States and European Union are in decline since the global financial crisis. Furthermore, China is a major supplier of essential goods in the United States and the European Union. So in conclusion, the three countries are also engaged in extensive trading among themselves, even though the exports to the European Union have significantly decreased since the global financial crisis. So these pictures in the back shows the trading of the new Big Three country. So let's move in to our next topic, which is the United Nations. So 51 countries came together to form the United Nations in 1945 following the Second World War. So United Nations is an international organization that preserves world peace and security and fostering goodwills among nations and advancing social progress higher living standards, and human rights. So the United Nations has 193 members and 2 non-members, which is the Holy See or the Vatican City and the City of Palestine. So some of the responsibilities of United Nations is the Security Council and the General Assembly. So the Security Council is responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security. So the Security Council also recommends to the General Assemblies that elects the judges of the International Court of Justice. So let's move to the Organization Assembly of the United Nations. So the first one is the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. So next is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And last but not the least is the International Atomic Energy Agency. So the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development is a program that helped 110 institutions in 72 poor nations since it was founded. So the next one is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization that continues to be the best United Nations Assembly. So last but not the least on the organization of the United Nations is the International Atomic Energy Agency. So the International Atomic Energy Agency was founded in July 1957 as an autonomous organization. It is also known as the world's watchdog, as it was founded because of the nuclear weapons of Iran leading by Mohammad al-Barani. So there are 4 broad areas that concerns the United Nations. The first one involves the military issues. So the United Nations was envisioned as a major force for managing the peace and security, especially in interstate relations. The second one is the economic issues. So the main focus of the United Nations has been to promote actions that would lead to reductions in global inequality. So the third one is the environmental issues. So example of these environmental issues is the pollutions and hazardous wastes, which are dealt with primarily through United Nations Environmental Program. Finally, the last one is the matters of human protections. So a variety of United Nations sponsored human rights treaties and agreements have come to protect the human rights around the world. So my last topic on the chapter 5 is the global governance. So the global governance offers an overview and study of international conventions and organizations, both global and regional, that controls the production and transfer of knowledge. So the example of the global governance is the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. So the United Nations is the premier global organization in the realm of politics, while the World Trade Organization is the sole international organization that deals with the international trade regulation. And its main goal is to maintain the most predictable and unrestricted flow of trade. There are 3 forms of governance. The first one is the governance without the government. So this means that various matters are managed within the nation state without the involvement of the state government. So the next one is governance through various public policy networks. So this type of form of governance involves government by various international institutions and international non-governmental organizations, and also private sectors of organization of various sorts. So finally, the last one is the governance with global level that can be normatively mediated or moderated. So this includes here the efforts of the values, including the Commission on Global Governance as well as the Global Compact created by the former United Nations Secretary Kofi Annan. All of the 3 forms of governance relates to the decline of the nation state, even in the realm of governance. So that will be the end of my report or discussion. Thank you for listening and watching.